Hi, I'm Shrankla Holochak, the founder and CEO of Uma, an Ayurvedic beauty and wellness collection. This is the Uma Ayurveda podcast. Each week, I'll be having a conversation with someone I greatly admire on the topics of Ayurveda, holistic healing, spiritual well-being, and alternative health. By sharing wisdom, I hope to share a personal truth and revelation with you that as ancient as they are, Ayurveda and other healing modalities are as modern and relevant today as ever. My guest today is Divya Alter. Divya and her husband Prentice are the co-founders of Bhagavat Life, an Ayurvedic culinary school, and Divya's Kitchen, an Ayurvedic restaurant in Manhattan. Divya is also the author of What to Eat for How You Feel, the new Ayurvedic Kitchen. To use her words, for Divya, food is much more than a means of sustenance. It is a friend that has transformed and uplifted her on levels way beyond the physical. Divya's cooking is based on the ancient principles of Shakvansya Ayurveda, which teaches us how to link our physical and mental needs with the foods and seasonings that will balance us accordingly. I'm personally a huge fan of Divya's Kitchen and all that Divya is doing in this space, and it is such a pleasure to be speaking with her today and sharing her wisdom with you. Divya, it is such an absolute pleasure to be talking with you formally on the podcast. I am so excited to learn a little bit more about you, more than I have already in almost a stalkerish fervence learned about you, both from Stacey as well as reading about you. I'd love to start out with, what does Ayurveda mean to you and what has it done for you?
Well, thank you, Shrankla. I'm really happy and very honored to be on your podcast. I always felt you as a kindred spirit, and I'm very fascinated with your story as well, and very big admirer of all the work you do. So thank you so much for having me.
Gosh, coming from a connoisseur as yourself, I must take a moment to acknowledge just how humbling that is.
Oh. No, it's just, so what does Ayurveda mean to me? Ayurveda has been the agent of some of the major changes in my life. It's been truly life-changing to me in terms of, first of all, figuring out my diet and what's good for me to favor and avoid in terms of food. And then Ayurveda through the years has helped me overcome some destructive habits and develop good, healthy habits. And in general, good lifestyle practices that have helped me really evolve as a human being. And I cannot imagine my life without Ayurveda. So.
You know, it's so funny you say that, Divya, because I feel the same way, and perhaps we came at it from different places in our lives, because I almost re-embraced Ayurveda in some ways when I needed it most. But was there a precipitating moment, if you feel comfortable talking about it, that you felt that you made the space for Ayurveda in your life, or was it a gradual journey?
Well, I would say both. So looking back at my life, every time I've had some major health challenges and I needed help, somehow or other, Ayurveda would come to me to the rescue through different people, different parts of the world. I experienced it the most when I lived in India for 5 years, and especially when I lived in Vrindavan, which is one of the holy places, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. And it was such a life-changing experience. But the climate in India has always been very difficult for my body. So I would get sick, especially with digestive problems or parasites or something like that. And the local doctor was an amazing Ayurvedic doctor. And Dr. Partap Gupta, I really, I still love him very much.
And is he based in Vrindavan?
Yeah, he's based, and he comes from a lineage of Ayurvedic doctors. So his father, his grandfather, they all had like a clinic. And I would go to him, and he was very familiar with the Western mentality, and he's helped me tremendously. Just to, he would chastise me lovingly, and he would say, why do you try to do everything at once? You have to rest, or whatever it is. So with he was the first catalyst to kindling my interest in Ayurveda and experiencing the tremendous benefits of not just taking remedies and herbs, but really adjusting my diet and experiencing some of the treatments. I took a couple of workshops with him, and he taught me how to cook sweet rice, like kheer. It's called kheer in India. I still remember his tips. It was it's been so many years, like more than 20 years.
Oh, and Divya, your kheer is amongst the best I have had. So it definitely is delightful, however your first experience with kheer came to.
Thank you. So yes, and then later on, I've had a couple more. I was very sick. I had an amoebic infection. A few years later, I ended up at the Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Mumbai, and they have an Ayurvedic clinic, and they treated me there. I stayed for a month, and it really helped me tremendously. So the treatments helped me just gain energy and be able to stand with my feet, because I was very weak. And then I moved to the United States, and a few years later, I felt so sick. I was feeling just so sick, and like chronic fatigue, severe digestive problems, allergies. I don't know how all this accumulated for me, but then I met through that I met Dr. Marianne Teidelbaum and her teacher, who became my teacher, Vaidya Ramakant Mishra, and they really turned everything around for me. Made Ayurveda so practical and so alive as a science that I decided to dedicate my life to helping people experience Ayurveda in their life, especially through food, because this is my passion.
And how grateful we are for all your service in this adventure. And I'm very excited to talk about your breadth and depth of knowledge in Ayurvedic cooking. And as you rightly said, in Ayurveda, or maybe you didn't say that, but implied it, food. And to me, that is the fundamental tenet of where you start. The body's balancing, the body's healing, the body's detoxification processes. And even though Uma is a product company that deals with more skincare and aromatherapeutic wellness, I always challenge people on thinking about what they are eating, even when they present with skincare issues, because that indeed is the root of everything in Ayurveda. But before we talk about your amazing Ayurvedic cooking prowess, I would love to start with Divya, the incredible entrepreneur who's forging new paths, both with Bhagavat Life, which is the culinary school, and Divya's Kitchen, your Ayurvedic restaurant in Manhattan. Please tell us all, because I know our listeners would be incredibly excited to hear about those.
Yeah, well, I have to give all credit to my husband, Prentice, because he is the business mind behind all this. I'm more of the organizer and just creating all the programs and recipes and menus and all that. But really, he's the business person behind it. So we are a team. We're very ambitious, probably too ambitious, because we're always so busy. It's not the kind of business we do to just make money. We need to have some profit to sustain what we do for a long time. But our main drive and inspiration is just seeing how much people benefit from what we offer. how they feel inspired and how they feel that they can apply something positive in their life to make even small changes, even if it's not a big change. Small changes um, count, and they're so important. So we try to make Ayurveda accessible through our cooking classes and other wellness events, and through the restaurant, through food, and just to show that you don't have to be a practitioner or to create big life changes. You can just start with simple steps, like little things, and you feel that they help you, and that's a great that's great.
I think that has been the most meaningful personal lighthouse, for lack of a better word, for me when it comes to Ayurveda, because even in my personal journey, there are times that I'm practicing 25 things from Ayurveda, whether it is pranayam and being a good yogi and eating good ghee and khichdi, to sometimes down to two when I am traveling maniacally. But I love that I have never felt like I needed to judge myself by how good or bad of an Ayurvedic I was being, as long as it was a part of my life. And that I'm glad you outline and underscore that you can start your Ayurvedic journey in bite-sized modular fashions and realize what might be right for you in that period of your life, and still see tremendous benefit from that. So I like calling that out when we do these conversations, because it is a beautiful aspect about Ayurveda.
Yeah, and you may, many of our listeners who are new to Ayurveda, you may be practicing some Ayurvedic, you may be doing some Ayurvedic practices without even knowing. You know, if you're scraping your tongue in the morning, which you can get a tongue scraper from a health food store. If you're showering in the morning, you're practicing Ayurveda self-care. So there are so many little things in our current Western American culture that actually come from Ayurveda.
You're totally right. It was funny. I was watching an old Curb Your Enthusiasm recently, where Larry David is talking to his wife, Cheryl, as they're divorcing, about what she taught him in the whole marriage. And he brought up the idea of tongue scraping. And I'm like, that's Ayurveda for you, Larry David. But funny how it's crept into mainstream practices without many people even realizing it's Ayurvedic. When I first learned about Divya's Kitchen and your very authentic service of Ayurvedic cooking, I was A, overjoyed, but B, very curious, because I wondered how you're managing the journey of building awareness around Ayurveda, but also changing taste profiles. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is very fascinating to me also, because Ayurveda is a universal science. You don't have to eat Indian food to be Ayurvedic. You can practice it anywhere in the world. And what you have to do is adjust. I call it Ayurvedize. Like, adjust. First of all, learn the main principles. In this case, we're talking about diet and food. Learn the main Ayurvedic principles for digestion, and then you can adjust your local dishes to make them Ayurvedic. That's why you will see on our menu we have lasagna and risotto. I love Italian flavors. I have a minestrone soup and all these other things. So, but what I do is I take, first of all, sometimes it's like, I wonder if I can make an Ayurvedic minestrone. So I would look at the traditional recipe and I would say, yeah, I could replace this with this. I could add a little bit of this to support digestion of this. Instead of this oil, I'll use this oil. Instead of this cooking method, I'll use this one just to make it easier to protect the prana in the food. So this is how I Ayurvedize recipes. And this is also what I think people appreciate the flexibility of applying Ayurvedic principles to local cuisines.
That's a great point and a very, very helpful tip. Staying a little bit on that and clarifying something that maybe I get bombarded with as a question, which is many in the West have come to associate Indian food with the Mughal or tandoori cuisine, as it were, the naans, the very rich curries. And having grown up in India in an Ayurvedic household, I know that at home we eat much more simply with that food kind of reserved for celebrations or meals out. But a majority of friends here or even in the UK expect all quote unquote Indian meals to have that rich, very spicy profile. Have you had to deal with that at Divya's Kitchen?
Yes. In fact, in the beginning, we were listed on some platforms like Yelp and I think Open Table, and they listed us also as Indian because there is no Ayurvedic category yet.
Yes.
So, and we experience this, like sometimes we will get like 1-star reviews from people who came and they really expected modern Indian cuisine. We cooked with the heavy oils and really spicy and deep fried. and our menu is it consists of very sattvic, very balancing dishes. We don't deep fry anything. We don't put too much oil. Nothing is greasy on our menu. And we use only 4 types of healthy oils. So we just removed the Indian category from our description. And yes, we face this. So sometimes I like to come out in the dining room and meet our guests and speak with them. And when I see, especially I can notice traditional Indian family, and I would ask them, I would explain to them that this is sattvic Ayurvedic cuisine. And if you like, not everything has chili. And if you like very spicy, we have a hot sauce. So I like to explain, and very often actually, especially like families that come with their grandparents or their parents, they would tell me that's exactly how we like to cook at home. Very simple, very healthy. But there are people who expect like modern Indian cuisine, and they just come with the wrong expectations to our restaurant.
And I'm glad that you called out that that most Indians, especially those of us that were raised in India, eat much more sattvic Ayurvedic food as part of our daily lifestyle. And Divya, I'd love to hear in your words, and I'm sure our listeners would as well, what sattvic as food means.
So sattvic it's a type of energy. It comes from the concept of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is the most balancing energy of illumination, goodness, enlightenment. This is where we feel very balanced, where this type of energy where we feel light and happy. And then rajas is the energy of passion, of a lot of movement, of a lot of change. Rajas is more a lot going on, very stimulating.
Right.
And tamas is the energy of inertia, of slowing down. It's also sometimes related to darkness. If you're too much in tamasic energy, you may feel depressed. It could lead to lethargy and laziness like that. So I like this example of, imagine a room in your house, and you have a very nice clean room with lots of light and beautiful plants and really nice, like airy energy. It just feel, you enter and it's like, oh my God, the energy here is so amazing. You feel immediately uplifted entering this room. And then the same room, you invite a party and you get 50 people in there doing loud things and maybe drinking or loud music and dancing and having a lot of fun. And then the next morning, the same room is just full of garbage and it needs some serious cleaning. So that's it. It's like how even us, we can go through different stages of, and we perceive those energies through our consciousness. So we can go through different stages of consciousness or eat different foods. Like one same food can be sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. You have a nice fresh peach, and it's so juicy and fresh and sweet, just picked from the tree, beautiful. And then you can this peach, and it becomes more rajasic because it's been sitting there for a long time. And then if you leave this open and the peach starts to get moldy, that will be a tamasic energy. So just shifts of energy. I hope this makes sense.
It does. It most certainly does. And I think it's worth calling out that Ayurveda has always emphasized the importance of balance in our lives. And it's balance within our bodies, within our doshas, within the energies we live in. And environments profoundly impact all of those things. And it's important to note that we may externally be exposed to a lot of rajasic and tamasic energies, which further underscores the importance of sattvic eating in our lives. Because Divya, you're right that I see less and less sattvic energy in going through my day to day, whether it is lesser contact with nature or being closer to oceans, or being able to observe that more meaningfully in my personal life. So that piece of the balance is definitely something that I seek out in whichever way I can to maintain that life of energetic and doshic balance.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, Shrankla. And just to echo on this, it always begins with self-awareness. And that's what another aspect of Ayurveda that I really love. It helps us understand more about ourselves, our nature, not just our dosha, our body type, but who we are, what we're meant to do in this life, but also to develop this self-awareness. And then through self-awareness, we make decisions of what we need right now to balance.
You're completely right. And if there's one thing people should take away from an Ayurvedic exploration is the idea of strong intuition and truly listening to one's body, because very often what my body is truly telling me is going to be different from what your body tells you. And listening to that inner voice, the true inner voice, is how I think most of us can achieve the purpose that we're on this earth for. Tell me a little bit about your voice and how you eat every day, Divya.
Oh, well, I love to eat very simple foods. So I'm committed to preparing fresh meals every day. So it's very easy. Actually, I'm realizing how much more I'm cooking now at home, because with the restaurant, I know that I'm at work and I have freshly cooked food that I really love every day. So it's not a problem. And I can focus on other things. And now I've been at home and it's like, oh my God, I have to cook lunch and now I have to cook dinner. Oh.
This is true. And is a good call out to our audiences that Ayurveda does lay a pretty strong emphasis on cooking and eating freshly cooked food. And I'm glad you brought that up. But Divya, have you found good hacks around it? Because I know some people within our audience group will be wondering, how do you nourish yourself with these healthy, fresh cooked meals, and what advice might you have for our listeners?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I have to. I always cook for my husband, who is a big eater, and he likes variety. So lately, I mean, my home cooking lately has been mostly testing recipes for my new cookbook. But something that, and again, I would just explain what we like to eat. And of course, this might not be balancing for everybody. We like to have a simple breakfast. So I usually start with a pre-breakfast, which is the cooked apple pre-breakfast. I'm happy to describe the recipe in a couple of minutes. And this is really helpful because it helps us eat something small and do our meditation and exercise or whatever else we want to do in the morning, and then have breakfast. And we prefer to have more savory, like salty kind of breakfast rather than sweet. We don't really eat oatmeal so much, not so much in the spring. It feels too heavy for us. But I like to make like a light protein breakfast. So now in springtime, I really like making fresh monk sprouts. And I would just saute them because when they're raw, they're too aggravating for vata, the airy energies. But I would just saute them. Sometimes I would add vegetables. Or I make this traditional Ayurvedic protein staple called Ram Ruch. The recipe will be in my new book. And it's made from, it's something like vegan paneer. I don't know how to explain it. I make it into cubes and then I toast it and cook it with some maybe leafy greens or asparagus, something like that. It's very quick cooking. So in the morning we do something that cooks fast. And sometimes we'll just make a dal, like a lentil soup, maybe some vegetable in it, because we feel that we need more protein in the morning, the easy to digest type of protein. And we're vegetarians, so we don't really eat meat, fish, or eggs. And then for lunch, lunch is the most time-consuming cooking and menu, and still we keep it simple. Nowadays, I've been doing a lot of one-pot meals just because I want to have more time to write my book. So I've been using a lot of the Instant Pot, especially for making like a quick soup, especially with lentil soups. That has been very helpful. So I would make a khichdi, or there are many other recipes for one pot meals that I would make. And dinner is usually in the hands of my husband, who is the 15-minute cook. So he would just make something super simple. Let's say vegetables with a little bit of paneer cheese and rice or something like that. Another hack I would recommend is you can split the prep time and the cooking time. So you could prep your vegetables the night before or in the morning for cooking them later, or soak, make your spice blends on Sunday or whenever you're preparing for the week. You can kind of split the prep time, and then cooking time, this really saves most of your cook, because cooking time doesn't take much time for quick meals. But if you do a lot of the prep work the day before, or even a few days, you can prep for a few days. It's not ideal, but it's better than eating out. So that I find this very helpful too.
And that is. Divya, you've been so kind and have shared some recipes with us in the past. So we'll be sure to link those at the bottom of the podcast. Tell us about how we can get more of this amazing wisdom. I know you've mentioned a book and an upcoming book. I would love to hear more about how we can get more from your restaurant or your culinary school. Please tell us about that.
Yes, of course. My cookbook is called What to Eat for How You Feel, the new Ayurvedic Kitchen. It came out 3 years ago, and this month we're actually celebrating the 6th edition.
Congratulations.
Yes, and it just came out in German language as well. It was published in Germany and distributed in all the German-speaking countries, which is very exciting. The book will give you a really nice overview of Ayurvedic cooking according to the Shaka Vansya Ayurveda tradition, which I practice, I'm trained in. And the book teaches you how to cook seasonal ingredients and adjust them according to your type of digestion. So I explain the 4 types of digestion And it's a really practical way to figure out what to eat, depending on what your digestion is today. I put a lot of love in it, and I've been getting a lot of positive reviews. And also, if you follow our Instagram account for Divya's Kitchen NYC, we post once a week, we post video recipes that are very easy, like seasonal video recipes. And we post a lot of announcements and other things. And of course, my personal Instagram, Divya Alter, we're pretty active on Instagram. And then for our school, Bhagavat Life, the website is bvtlife.com. We're currently developing an online curriculum, and we'll be offering online cooking classes. And we've also started the Ayurvedic nutrition and culinary training. The acronym for this is ANACT. And we've taught it for the past 4 years, very successful. It's like an Ayurvedic chef's training, which goes for 9 months. It has 2 or 3 levels. And currently we're preparing the first level, which is the knowledge part, to be available online as well. Because we've had people from all over the world who've asked us to take this training, because there is no other training like that.
Everything I have read about it sounds incredibly fascinating. And if I was in New York and I didn't have a startup to run full time, I'd be the first to sign up for the training. Of course, you've had hundreds, but I would definitely be in line. Are there resources that you have found helpful along your Ayurvedic evolution and journey that you'd be willing to share with the audience?
Yes, definitely. My teacher, Vaidya Mishra, unfortunately, he passed away 3 years ago.
I'm sorry.
But his website, and especially his blog, and you can even go through the archives, it's such a treasure house of knowledge. The website is called svayurveda.com. SV is in Victor, ayurveda.com. And if you click on blog and you go through some of the articles that he wrote years ago, and you can even search for keywords and come up with a bunch of articles. What I really love about his articles is that he would always bring the Sanskrit quotes from Charaka Samhita and other traditional Ayurvedic texts, and then he would bring in modern science and connect the two and make it very practical for us to apply in our daily life today. So that's a great resource. I always go there. Another great resource is Dr. John Douliard's website. Dr. John Douliard is a very accomplished, really amazing person, also an Ayurvedic doctor, and his passion is to really bring the modern science into the Ayurvedic concepts. And if you're looking for a proof of modern science about the healing benefits of fenugreek seeds, you will find it on his website. So his website is lifespa.com. And these are 2 great resources. I mean, your blog is so practical. I really love your articles because it just makes it's like when I read your blog, it's like, oh, I can do this.
Well, the credit goes to the amazing people such as yourself, who have volunteered great wisdom and valuable time to help disseminate deep, dense, but at the same time bite-sized wisdom on Ayurveda, which is what keeps the blog going. So thank you for saying that, but more importantly, thank you for being a contributor and such a generous sharer of your wisdom with people.
It's always an honor, Shanko. Just one more resource came to mind. That's a book that came out last year. It's called Healing the Thyroid with Ayurveda by Dr. Marianne Teidelbaum. Also a very well-researched book. And I really like this book because it outlines, it's not just about the thyroid, it's about many other things. It outlines Shakavansi Ayurveda really well, and it has a lot of, like, over 40 pages, I think, with scientific research references. So that's also another great resource.
That's one I'm not familiar with, but I will be grabbing it today. I absolutely love Ayurvedic literature that actually spans modern wisdom, provable science, and things like that. So it sounds like an illuminating book on that, and I will definitely be grabbing it. A few questions, Divya, to impose on your generosity. I love hearing this from everyone. What dosha are you, and what was your journey of discovering it?
Well, I believe my dosha is Vata Pitta.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny because over the years I've had different Ayurvedic doctors read my pulse, and sometimes they tell me that my dosha is Pitta Vata. I think, but I know, I read my body and I can read my pulse too, but I definitely feel that my dosha is Vata Pitta, and I think my Vata and my Pitta are very close, like very closely. It's almost the same, but I'm more Vata, a little bit more Vata.
It's a question we get a lot, and one that I always provide one answer to, followed with a but see a practitioner, which I know sometimes seems unsatisfactory, but it is a somewhat nebulous journey of discovery, because your body may present different constitutions based on what it might be going through at that moment in time.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we identify our imbalance with our predominant dosha.
Exactly. So I'm glad you touched on how it is not always so straightforward and something that you learn immediately, but it is a journey of discovery, much like Ayurveda is. And I suppose my final question on this topic would be the balancing of Ayurvedic principles with sometimes the demands of modern life. It definitely sounds like you are doing an amazing and inspirational job with that, cooking fresh meals and so on. But any personal advice or thoughts you might share with our listeners on how to remain balanced given the environments we live in?
Oh, Shrankla, I'm definitely a work in progress. In terms of applying many different Ayurvedic principles, I can be doing a lot better. But, like, one thing is, we always and this is something that I did as a beginner in Ayurveda a few years ago. It's very important to start small and just don't, because sometimes we get so overwhelmed by all those so-called rules in Ayurveda. I don't take them as rules. I take them as guidelines. There's no black and white. You're not a bad person if you're not able to follow them. It's a question of it's a personal development. It's a path of evolution. So if you start with simple things that you can apply for yourself today without any stress, that's a good start. If you stress over following all the Ayurvedic principles, that's not healthy. so I would say building, it has been very helpful for me to build, again, getting rid of bad habits that were distractive from my health, and replacing them with good habits. Avoiding the foods that I really liked but they were not good for my health, and replacing them with healthier and still very satisfying foods. I think that's a very important principle. And also the principle of not just giving up and going cold turkey. Try to replace something that's not supporting your health and your progress with something else. Find a better replacement first and then go for the change.
That is so eloquently put, and I think such a wise and sage set of guidelines to follow in getting started or even maintaining this journey. Divya, this has been incredible. I know I'm walking away with such a new set of things that I would like to explore. So I can't even imagine how helpful this has been for our audiences. Are there any things that you would like to add, or anything I might have missed during this chat?
Maybe just in conclusion, we can touch on the main concept of Ayurveda is that it supports the innate ability of the body to heal itself. It's a practice of self-healing. And Ayurveda is also a participatory practice. It's not like taking the herb or taking the pill and then continuing with your bad habits. No, it's a participatory. You will get better if you do better. But it's a concept of self-care and self-healing, and really nurturing ourselves and developing this attitude of selfless self-care, that yes, I need to take care of myself to be strong, to do my dharma, to do my duty, to help others, to be of service to others. I feel that's really important, even especially today, when so many of us are really looking very closely into how can I take care of myself better. And Ayurveda, I haven't found any other science, any other medicine, any other holistic practice that gives us the most detailed, most personalized guidelines in self-care.
I think that is such a beautiful call to action for those of us who are already on the journey, as well as those who are just discovering Ayurveda. And Divya, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time, sharing your wisdom, sharing your practice with us. We will be putting all the notes and details of everything that you so kindly shared with us during the podcast in the podcast notes. And I encourage all our listeners to follow you on Instagram, because that has been an amazing source of inspiration and wisdom to me, as well as check out your restaurant in New York. There is truly nothing like it. Thank you, Divya.
Thank you, Shrankula. Thank you for your very thoughtful questions. I really enjoyed this. Very meaningful to me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like more information on our guests and the additional references during our conversation, please visit us at umaoils.com. That is U-M as in Mary, AOILS.com. And please subscribe to the Uma Ayurveda podcast and share. See you next time.